Good morning. Good morning. I'm so glad to see you all here. A few people still coming in, but we will get started because we're also being broadcast live. So you know how the TV schedules have to go. I see a few familiar faces out here, but most of you I don't think I know. How many people have never seen one of our concerts before? Oh, wonderful, wonderful. We're so glad you're here. So I'll make sure to talk a little bit about handbells if you're new to our instrument, because it's a little different than your typical orchestra or band. We started to put this program together in 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. We had ordered our music, we'd started to rehearse a few pieces, and then suddenly everything stopped. So we have not had a Patriots Day concert since then, and when we went to plan this year, we said, well, let's do the same music we were going to. We had a water theme that we were working on. We didn't know it was going to rain, so can't blame us. But so there is definitely a water theme, and one of the things that I was thinking about as we looked at all these various pieces of music, that they all have to do with some kind of a voyage that people are taking over the ocean or down a river or under the ocean or through distance and time. So water, music, distance, voyages. We are going to start with the piece that is called the Navy Hymn, Eternal Father, Strong to Save. This was a poem that was written in 1860, and it was first published in England, but asking for protection from God for those in peril on the sea. And so many hymns, the music and the text are written by different people, different centuries, but in this particular case, the composer who wrote the music you're going to hear wrote it specifically for this text. So that's a little unusual for a hymn. So it is known as the Navy Hymn, but if you're astute, you're going to hear a little bit of Anchors Aweigh, which is the Navy song. So when we start it, don't say to yourself, wait a second, I know that. That's not the Navy Hymn. We know it. There's a little bit of Anchors Aweigh. So our next piece, Down by the Riverside, is an African American spiritual that was sung before the Civil War. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, ain't gonna study war no more. There's a lot of biblical imagery, and if you were a casual listener, you would say, oh, this is a church song. But actually, it was a work song that was sung to convey messages in code about how to escape. And the river they're referring to was the Ohio River. So if you were to escape, you were supposed to head towards the Ohio River for safety. And the various other images about the River Jordan, the white robe, those are all how to find helpers along the way. The other thing that you're going to hear about is typical of spirituals in general is something called call and response music, where one group or a leader does something and everybody else responds and goes back and forth. So you're going to hear in this place, see those, I forget the words now, bum, 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 ba-dum. That's the next piece. I'm giving it away. That's the next piece. Same idea, but you're going to hear it in here as well. So anyway, Down by the Riverside, enjoy. other spiritual Wade in the Water, which has the call and response in it. This coded message has to do with wading in the water to avoid detection from the dogs or the people chasing you. So that's a very different message than your spiritual salvation. But biblically, they're talking about the escape of the ancient Jews from Egypt. So that's the text that it looks like, but it actually was, again, one of these coded songs. Our version is sort of a bit of a modern blues take on Wade in the Water, so it's a nice little combination. You're also going to hear us play another instrument, and that is a chime. So let me just grab one. Instead of a bell, these are little aluminum tubes, sort of like a tuning fork, that have their clapper built on the outside. So you'll hear some of that in the middle of this piece. Wade in the water. One, two, three, four. So while we have a little change of personnel here, since a lot of you are new to bells, I just thought I would show you something about bells. Can I just borrow yours for a second? Our instrument resembles the school bell you remember on the teacher's desk, a bell. Those bells, they have a clapper in the middle that just hangs there, and you can do whatever, ring it around in any direction. Our clappers have springs. They only allow it to go in one direction, front to back, and they are a little bit looser in the front direction. So our bell wants to ring on the front. We can ring it on the back, but it's harder. But sometimes you'll see us do a shake to make a little more drama. Each bell obviously plays one note. So if you were to look at the piano key, this is a piano key note right here. And we have in total 61 notes that we cover. Piano has 88, so we don't go quite as high or quite as low, but it's pretty close, 61 notes. Now, how do we do that with 13 people? It's kind of amazing. Most people are assigned 2 note names right next to each other, an A and a B. Those white keys right next to each other, A, B. But they also would do A flat and B flat, so they'd have 4 bells. So that's your assignment, is you're responsible for all those notes. But then we got these guys up here, their bells are so little. They said, well, you can do this A and this A, this littler. So you can play both those bells at the same time, and both those Bs, and both those A flats, and both those B flats. So suddenly, you have 8 bells that you're doing. So, all right, so that covers a lot. Then we got these guys down here with these big ones, and we say, well, how about if we give you fewer notes to play, but more bells? So we have 12 bells that we use 2 people to cover all 12 of those. But they're really big, so Scott picked that one up. It's really big and heavy. So we can't do the fast stuff that we do up here, but we don't need as many people to do it. So that's sort of how we get around 61 bells with 13 people with 26 hands. Okay, Lily of the Valley. So we've talked about voyages that people have gone. This is a song that the song itself went on a voyage. It started out in the 1860s or 1880s as a minstrel song written in this country. It was actually called The Little Log Cabin in the Lane. Okay, The Little Log Cabin in the Lane. And everybody loved this song. They were like, well, let me put some different words to it because I love the tune so much. So there was a cowboy version called The Little Old Sod Shanty on the Claim. And then there was a railroad version called The Little Red Caboose Behind the Train. Then there is the biblical one that we're going to play. I mean, we have no singing, so you can be any version, but ours is The Lily of the Valley. And then somewhere in the early 20th century, the tune got sort of half of it borrowed for the Titanic song, which is what we were thinking of when we chose it, about the great ship going down. But the tune itself has been all over the place, both sides of the Atlantic, sung with different words. So you can call it anything you want, The Lily of the Valley. Okay, we're going to jump a few centuries here. Walt Disney's original version of Little Mermaid. I know the remake is about to be out there, so a lot of people who maybe don't know this, but I'm going to guess, depending on what your age is, if you have children my age, you know The Little Mermaid. I can remember the color that the cassette was that lived in our car that we listened to constantly. And if you're a young parent, it probably was something that you listened to all the time. So The Little Mermaid, of course, is a Hans Christian Andersen folks tale from Denmark that was made by Disney to have a nicer ending than the original, which we won't go into right now. But so at this point, this song that we're going to play is The Little Mermaid thinking about how wonderful it would be if she had legs and could go out on the land and do all the things that she saw humans doing. So we are part of your world. Thank you. So now that we're in warm waters, we're going down to Jamaica. So this song is a Jamaican folk song, but has sort of a 20th century origin story, if you will. Most people know this from Harry Belafonte. This song was recorded in the 50s and was enormously popular. And so everybody used to say the Banana Boat song. They go, what? I said, Day-O. Oh, Harry Belafonte. Day-O, Day-O. Yes, that's the song. It is. So this is a story song. These are people working on the docks, loading bananas onto boats to come to the mainland and waiting for to get paid. They want the tally man to add up how many bananas they loaded so they can get paid. They worked at night because it's really hot in Jamaica. It's hard work. So you would work a night shift, and when the sun came up, that was Day-O, right? The sun is coming up. It's time to go home. So let's get paid, tally up our bananas, and let's go home. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a fun piece to play. So now we are firmly in the 20th century. We are going to Enya, Irish New Age Celtic music. And this particular piece is also, it's called Sail Away, an Orinoco Flow. The Orinoco is a long river in South America. But it turns out the title of this piece came from the name of the recording studio in London, which was Orinoco Studios. So I was like, wait, because the video, this was back when music videos were new in the 80s. The music video showed lots of rivers going, so it definitely is a river-related piece. But it's sailing away, and so we're thinking, sailing away, it will be warm, like it was last week. It will be warm again, and we will sail away. We need some extra folks to help us, and they are playing all on chimes, the aluminum tubes I showed you before. The way this piece was originally written, it would have been put together in a studio, in a recording studio, and they would have recorded one part and then layered on another part and then layered another part on. So you didn't need a lot of musicians, you just needed a lot of tape to record it all. So this is one of our layers down here. You'll hear them come in and they will add a layer. So you'll hear that in the piece. We start with one thing and then we add something else and then we add something else. So you can kind of imagine that we are a synthesizer up here. That is our version of a fade-out ending, right? Just a little bit. They weren't wrong. They were supposed to end like that. Yeah. So our last piece was the only piece on this program that wasn't selected 3 years ago. And this one is something that we're learning now. Every other year, we as a group go to a festival where we get together with lots of other bell choirs, and we play with clinicians that travel the country. So this particular piece we will be doing with the composer. He's a contemporary composer, Matthew Compton, but he selected as his inspiration a text from Hildegard von Bingen, who is a abbess, mystical composer, poet, author, who was born in 1098. So that's quite a long voyage for the inspiration for this piece. It's called Spiritus Sanctus, and it's our conclusion to our voyages today. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I'm so glad you joined us today, and it's wonderful to be back with you. I'm going to send a few of my ringers out with bells to show you your bells. So if anyone wants to see up and close how they work, hang around. Thank you. Otherwise, we'll see you next year.